Canada wins gold in women's hockey, the most watched hockey game in the United States this year, including the National Hockey League. That's an impressive number as we congratulate Anne-Renee Desbiens in a great tournament for the Canadian goalkeeper. And boy, that was exciting as all the goalkeepers seem to get into the action on that side. Welcome to InGoal Radio, the podcast. Darren Millard, along with the co-founders of InGoal Magazine, David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley. A lot to get to today. We have an incredible conversation coming up with Joseph Woll, part of the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, made his National Hockey League debut. And this is interesting because Woody actually found somebody who he's never crossed paths with. And they went down the road of getting to know each other, and it ended up being a really cool, interesting discussion. That's the Sense Arena feature interview. InGoal Radio, the podcast presented by The Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. Our gear segment today is one that just fascinates me every time the topic comes up, and it's breaking in your glove, the do's and the don'ts, and how to tweak it halfway through the process. A lot of things going on with this discussion with Cam, but let's get right to it. Woody, Anne-Renee Desbiens and Hutch, just some comments about what happened in the women's tournament.
I just thought it was a fabulous performance by Anne-Renee Desbiens. The control that she showed on the ice in all situations, her balance, her ability to be prepared to make that second and third save when required, not, as we say, going all road hockey or goalie 911 too early. She just looked like she was, to me, playing well above the level of the tournament itself. I thought it was just an incredible performance by her, and I must admit, boys, I didn't see a whole lot of the other goaltenders in the tournament. I was really enjoying watching Anne-Renee so much, but just congratulations to her and all her teammates for an incredible performance.
What we see in some of these tournaments is a goaltender separates themselves from the tournament. In the past, in the women's game, it's been pretty equal. But Anne-Renee Desbiens, Woody, she raised her level well beyond everybody else in Beijing.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that jumped out to me was just technically, especially in she was just, everything was so clean and, like you said, controlled. And even in scramble situations, she never looked out of control or like she was scrambling. She just kind of moved so efficiently behind, especially in the games against the US, the amount of sort of bodies that were being slammed to the net, pucks to the net, that type of mentality. She just, she rarely had to go into goalie 911 mode because she stayed so composed behind it all and moved so well, even when she was on her knees. She just played just a really exceptionally clean tournament. Is that a fair, and that's praise. That's meant completely as praise, but it was really fun to watch. It was, you know what? It was a bit of a goaltending clinic. That's how I would phrase it. It was like watching a how-to video. She was that good and that clean. And it didn't, maybe it didn't need to be as flashy. She wasn't put in spots to need to be as flashy, perhaps, as some of the goalies on other teams. But just a technical, foundational, clean movement, everything just she made it look easier than it was, I'm sure. But it was just really fun to watch from that side of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, as you were saying, she wasn't put in those spots, but on her, she didn't put herself in any of those spots either. I don't think we got to see what she's capable of because she was capable of making it look so easy this tournament.
Swagger. She had a bit of that throughout the tournament. Confidence. She just looked like she was ready for that moment and was not going to be denied. And I think we might have a rival or somebody that's in the same category or league as Marc-Andre Fleury when it comes to looking like you have fun out there. She was always smiling and she was winning a lot of games and going good. But even when things got a little crazy, there was a grin underneath that mask.
I was actually going to say the same thing. I was going to make the same comparison because she did have you know what? She enjoyed that moment. You talk about embracing pressure moments, and that's something she's talked about with us in her appearance on the InGoal Radio podcast before about how you handle pressure moments. And she just seemed to have fun with it. And it's something we've seen from Flower over the years and something that I think, may not be for every goalie, but something if you can emulate, I think that's a good sign.
And on the subject of Marc-Andre Fleury, he went for it. He has committed himself to scoring a goalie goal, and he went for it. Didn't quite make it. Got knocked down more than halfway towards the net, and he ended up picking up an assist. But I love the fact that he tried to lob the puck down there. And more, I think we got to keep an eye on this because I don't know what's going to happen next year. But the urgency for Marc-Andre Fleury to score this much sought after goalie goal, Hutch, is there, and it's growing.
It's awesome. It's awesome. The guy who has the most fun doing the thing that all of us want to do, to have fun on the ice. You know, they talk about guys retiring, going out on top, win the Stanley Cup, and say, I'm done. Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool if he's finally scored the goalie goal, just skated off the ice, and that was it?
You know what that reminds me of, and we got to quickly give him a shout out, is Pekka. Like, Pekka's jerseys goes up to the rafters this week, guys. I don't want to forget that. Obviously, we had him on the podcast just a few weeks ago for people to go listen to that, but big retirement ceremony for him in Nashville. And there's a guy who, kind of like we're hoping happens for Flower, right towards the end of a career, he got one.
Yeah, and he did it wonderfully too. Like, that was a no doubter. The old Pekka Rinne goal. That was you go back and watch that one. He converted on his opportunity. Tristan Jarry is also a goaltender that has managed to find the net and never is shy about taking his shot. But he's in the news right now for a different reason, and that's for offering his comments to Brad Marchand. We know Brad Marchand got the 6-game suspension and for punching Tristan Jarry and then waving a stick at him. We weren't sure what really led to the encounter, and there was a lot of mystery about that. Well, through the appeal by Brad Marchand, it came out what exactly initiated the interaction. And it was Tristan Jarry, after making a stop, said, "How about that bleep and save?" to Brad. and all of a sudden, Brad went a little bit out of control. Something tells me that it was said in a slightly creative way. What do you think, Hutch?
I think it might have been directed pretty hard at him, but it still comes off as a little soft on Marchand's part.
It's a good chirp.
We were just praising Fleury. Well, we're just praising Fleury for having fun, and isn't that really what Jarry was doing? I mean, I know it was a little bit at Marchand's expense, but come on, buds, that's a bit much.
Oh, 100%. We may have been waffling on the suspension before. We're kind of like, yeah, I mean, you don't want to see a goalie get punched in the head, but 6 games is a little extreme. If that's how you responded to that, like less than a few months from sort of criticizing Panarin for throwing a glove at him and basically calling him soft because that's all it takes to get you riled. Like, should have added to the suspension, give him more than 6 just for being so soft.
Well, I think Gary Bettman, this is my own feelings on this. I think Gary was very prepared to cut the suspension down to 3 and just went through the process of the appeal. But when he heard what set off Brad, and it was, how about that bleep and save? Gary looked at him and said, "What? That's what set you off? Oh no, you're getting 6 games. I can't lower that thing. That's the way I see that thing going down in the hearing."
That would be great if it was, and he just sent it right back at him. How about that bleeping suspension? Go enjoy it.
Yeah, that would be good. Don't forget that Brad also threw some shade at the Carolina Hurricanes for "you're the reason why there's escrow." As they were going back, and so there's he can certainly give it, and I love that he gives it. Tristan Jarry's cool factor, I think it goes up through this revelation, Hutch.
I think it goes up for sure, and yeah, to your point as well. I love that Marchand does it too. I think both of them are adding color to the game. Brings me back to something that will never happen, I'm sure, but I wish it would. I'd love everybody on a hot mic, and I would pay extra to be on that cable channel just to be able to watch and hear everything that happens on the ice. Never going to happen. It would be great to hear it all, though.
Speaking of cool factors in Tristan Jarry, guys, like, if you thought his cool factor was high now after this, like, I think it's going to go up when he scores a goal, because I think we've agreed it's only a matter of time, right? Like, we talk about Fleury getting one. We talk about Rinne having gotten one. You know, the next on our list, everybody talks about Mike Smith, but I look at, and we've talked about this before, Tristan Jarry, who can chuck it and has already scored in the AHL. His cool factor will go up. Nedeljkovic is another guy that's probably going to get a goal in the NHL. But if you want to know why Jari chucks it that well and cool factors, make sure you go to the hockey shop, thehockeyshop.com. They've got a couple left of his pro return stick, and this thing has some serious flex. So if you want to know why Tristan chucks it, this thing's unreal. It's pro stock only. So it's actually cheaper, but no warranty on the pro stock. But like, make sure you check out this week's video, even though this week's video is not about our gear segment. This week is about breaking in gloves. Part of the B-roll in the video is me sort of strolling around the store while we wait for a glove to go through the process. And one of the things I do is I grab this Tristan Jarry stick and flex it a few times. And it's crazy. And so, folks, you can get this one at the hockey shop, thehockeyshop.com. Limited supplies you can also get. And again, limited supplies, they're going fast. The new True Catalyst PX stick. Not a cheap stick. It's a $400 Canadian stick because it's also the lightest stick on the market. Stylish looking stick. They've got it in junior, intermediate, and senior sizes. It's quite an attractive twig, little gold trim on it, and literally is the lightest thing I've ever felt from a goalie stick. They call it a mid kick. I would call it a little bit of a no kick. It's a pretty stiff stick. So if you're looking for a flex point, unless you're like 250 pounds loaded with muscle playing junior, you're not getting, this is the antithesis of the Tristan Jarry twig in terms of flexing sticks. But that's what you get at the hockey shop and thehockeyshop.com. All the options and a staff led by Cam that's able to walk you through which one is best for you. But I had to say, as we're talking cool factors and goals, Tristan Jarry, make sure you check out this stick. It's not a flex point that's available at retail. I think the Warrior sticks for the pros are made in a different factory in Mexico than the ones the rest of us get in the public. And this is an option and a flex that I've just never seen before. So make sure you check it out before they're all gone. I'm actually surprised they've even got a couple left. Won't be for long at thehockeyshop.com.
I don't know whether there's an answer to this question, but I want to get to the gear segment in a second. But this is on the front of my brain right now, so I need to get this out. Is there a certain flex for a poor puck handler, somebody that doesn't shoot very well, and a flex for a good puck handler? Like if I have trouble shooting, do I need a stiffer flex? And if I'm a great shooter of the puck, do I need a whippier stick? Or I'm just curious.
Think that the personal preference there would depend on how you shoot the stick, how you shoot. Like some guys are more just like, are you a guy that wants the stick to flex? Do you know what I mean? Like there's different shooters. You can just play shuffleboard out there and you can just launch it without having a huge bow in it. Or you can be a guy who just gives it a little, like with some of these super flexible sticks, you don't need to like wind up. You just like sort of push that lower hand down and it bows and it just pops off for little passes, as opposed to having to make more of a hand motion. So I don't know that it's a good or bad, and maybe I'm not the one to say because I'm bad. But
if you're playing minor hockey or men's league, recreation league, you're that caliber of player. Would you do better with a whippier stick or a stiffer stick?
I would think that most guys would probably do better with a whippier stick, because they can do with the whippier stick which a higher skilled, stronger goaltender can do with a stiffer stick. I don't know if there's a parallel to golf clubs, Woody, but I'm so weak and small that I need graphite shafts so that I can accomplish something, whereas a stronger golfer can use steel shafts. But I'm not the golf guy. You are, Woody. The one that I also just wanted to add is it also affects how you pick up the rims. And the better goalie in this household was remarking that he was thinking of going to a stiff shaft, because when he's having to stop rims that are, effectively slap shots from just outside the blue line from junior players, he feels the difference. He feels it easier to stop that rim and pick up the puck with a bit of a stiffer shaft because it doesn't give as much. But so there's other things that we need to think about in there as well.
See, I should have just deferred to Hutch because that's the perfect answer. I think he's right. Like a little more flex just makes it easier to do things that guys that are stronger on their sticks are able to do with a stiffer flex. That's probably why I like because I'm weak and suck. So I like something with more flex. I like the E-Flex 4. I'm dying to try this Jarry model.
And again, getting your glove to the point where it just wraps around that handle and being able to get a good lean into it is awesome. And that goes to breaking your glove and having it ready to go. That is our gear segment this week, brought to you by The Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. Woody hanging out with Cam, going through the proper way to break in your glove, what you should do and what you should not do. Please listen to them. Here's the gear segment with Cam and Woody.
Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, source for sports, down here in Goalie Utopia, the lower floor, dedicated goaltending with Cam Matwiv. You see behind us, maybe not every week because we move it around, but a lot of weeks, you see the glove wall. It actually extends further than Cam's arm, bigger than his head, which is saying a lot. There's a lot of gloves back there.
I don't know if it's that big.
We've got a lot of gloves in here. So why all the glove love? Because we'd like to help you. We'd like to show you how to get your glove.
A frequently asked question around here.
Broken in as well as they've broken in this glove. So Cam, walk us through the process you use to break in gloves for a new customer if they've purchased something. Or, like I said, sometimes it's nice, you want to have a model on the wall and show people how it's, what that finished product is going to feel like. This Genetic 5 is like butter. What'd you do? What's the process? Help me help them break in some gloves.
Okay, so a lot of cases, especially, say your custom ones, some of the gloves off the wall, brand to brand dependent. Anyway, you get a lot of that as soon as you go open it up, especially those younger kids, things like that. It's like there's a lot of struggling involved. You're like, okay, how can we get that glove to look like that?
Buttery.
Step one for us. Say you're shopping in store, and this is something we can do for you guys online as well. Just make a request. Skate up. Don't try this at home. This is something.
Do not try this at home. A skate oven is not the same.
One more time, Hutch.
Giant logos everywhere. A
Okay.
skate oven is not the same as your mom's oven. You could wreck your gloves.
For the love of God, please. So, basic starting point is we do bake that glove for 5 minutes in our skate oven, which is specifically set to a temperature that's not going to wreck the glove. That's important. A lot of the gloves, especially actually Vaughn gloves in particular, do have thermo-activated foam in the glove, specifically designed for this baking process so that it will start to imprint your hand inside the glove and also work on that closure. That's one of the best aspects of it. So we do that for you. Start that process in store. What will happen though over time, as that glove does cool down, it will start to stiffen back up again. So that can be a little bit hard because we're kickstarting that break-in process, but this isn't going to just solve the problem 100%. So there is a little bit of DIY at home as well. For me, I'm very, very traditionalist when it comes to breaking in my gloves. I pop my glove somewhere where I'm going to put it on every day for 5 minutes, sort of thing. Usually within about a week and a half to 2 weeks, I'm close to there. And I'm talking about, sitting watching a hockey game, opening and closing that glove over and over and over again. And that's what's really kickstarting that break-in process. It's imprinting my hand inside the glove. And that's how I feel I've had the best success for it. Now, Kevin, he likes to do things a little bit differently as well.
Yeah, no, my traditional technique is to just sort of wrap like a bungee or like something like like one of the workout bands, the rubber bands, wrap it closed one day, and then the next day sort of get it wide open. I'll take one of those, like I have a butt end from a player stick that's sort of the perfect size to fit in a pocket, and so one day you're sort of establishing that pattern closed, and the next day you're establishing that pattern wide open.
Correct. Now, some of the things that we have seen from that when stretching that pocket open wide is that it can break on the wrong side of the break. And this is something that I've seen commonly happen with 600 break gloves in particular, on the E-Flex or an Axis if it happens to be a 600 break, is that we get a close-up of that, is that the glove wants to close on that side of the rib there. Now, I do have a fix for this because we want this to overlap and actually close from the other side, bringing that finger so we can get that good seal. So,
pucks, do I get to throw them again at you this week?
No. Into the center of the palm with that puck. And then as Kevin was talking about before, in terms of taping that glove shut, we want to have that closure happen where that puck's now pushing that palm back down. helping to overlap those fingers back over top. This might take a couple times and a couple tries, even bring it into the store, baking it a couple more times, but that should help to restart that break back over the top and stop that half closure from happening. I see this quite commonly a lot, and this isn't, I wouldn't say my like quick fix because it does take a little bit of effort to get there, but it does tend to help reset that break and get her started again.
Yeah, there's like the break actually has like, there's a solid piece that runs through that break, and if you don't get it right, that piece can sort of sit improperly, so you want to get it pushed back in.
Correct.
All right.
We have that happen, for example.
Other tricks?
A couple more things that do want to cover, especially for gloves. Getting the glove relaced. Sometimes they do come quite tight from the factory, which can really hinder that break-in period for. So we do offer a relacing program. It is something we do recommend as well. Whether or not you want to do a skate lace or say regular nylon lace, things like that, definitely person to person dependent. That can also help to loosen up that glove and get it set up. One more note, just because we are on the topic of gloves. Say your glove is getting a little bit more worn in. You are starting to feel, some pucks through it, things like that and whatnot. Quick hit.
Lizard skins.
Exactly.
We talked about this a couple of years ago. Oh, Cam, you brought me a pair for your tiny little hands.
Hey.
Oh, look, they fit
Now,
me.
this is important.
They fit me too.
They should be tight. They should be nice and snug. You don't want it too loose.
In honor of Pekka Rinne's retirement coming up in Nashville, UC Saros followed in Pekka Rinne's footsteps. Exactly. Talked to him just the other week about why he wore a quote-unquote batting glove underneath his player glove, and he said just because Pekka did it. So, but they also had one that they had found through one of the equipment managers on the team was neighbors with an equipment manager for a Major League Baseball team, and they found a padded glove, much like this. If your glove's getting broken down and worn into the point where maybe you're starting to feel a little bit in the palm of the hand and you just feel, or the surface has gotten sort of, with all through sweat, has gotten kind of slick inside there, this lizard skins glove that Cam and the hockey shop have found is a great alternative to sort of add padding, especially in the fingers and the palm, the area where we catch the most, where we feel the most of those pucks, and a great grip. We've tested this with NHL goaltenders, guys on NHL contracts, and they really liked it. It's a good product rather than just buying a straight out batting glove, especially if you've got a glove that you love, like you love the break. It's broken in, you followed all of Cam's steps. It's your favorite break. It closes like butter, but the padding's starting to wear out or that grip's starting to wear out. This can be a great refresh. And we find, especially with the fingertips, the extra padding on those two, the index and the middle finger, can sort of help sort of grip and get a little bit of sort of that closed hand closure. So lizard skins is something we've talked about here before. We've tested it. We've validated it. There's a reason that Cam stocks a product you wouldn't normally associate with hockey here at the hockey shop. So lizard skin gloves can really help, like I said, whether you're feeling stingers or your kid's feeling stingers, whether it's because of an old glove or just, maybe you bought it with a level of padding, game ready, and you're now moved up to where you need a pro palm, but you're waiting for it or you haven't ordered it yet. This can be a great added feature. So we've talked about how to sort of get a little extra life out of your glove with a lizard skin. We've talked about breaking them in at the beginning. We've talked about relacing them, either if they're too tight or if they start to come apart. We've talked about my way to break in a glove. We've talked about Cam's way to break in a glove. What do we got left?
Well, tell you what, maybe you comment below. Tell us how you break in your gloves, what you find that works the best. We know there's a million different ways out there, some more successful than others, for sure. Love to get some comments going, see what works best for you.
Not a bad idea. Show us what you got.
We should offer prize packs to people to go along with Woody for the recordings of the gear segment with Cam. Because there's a whole bunch of fun that's going on there. Great information, but just be able to sit there and watch that go down and be able to interact in the before and the after. I would love to go and hang out with you guys.
I think you have to, the emphasis there is to sit there and watch. So folks that are listening on the podcast, make sure you go check out the video. There's a whole lot of extra sort of information Cam talks about, especially that 600 break and how that middle section in the palm of the break can move out of place as the glove softens up and how to sort of reestablish the proper break using a puck. We've got video sort of highlighting that all. You'll see the before and after of the CCM glove. coming out of the skate oven versus going in. I seem to remember a certain somewhat decent goalie telling us about how often he used the skate oven to get his glove ready to play. And in the words of Mr. Carey Price, it feels like you're putting your hand, what was it, in what type of butter, Hutch?
In a warm loaf of butter.
One of the best phrases ever. Yeah. And it is pretty remarkable when you see the video, like, you know, an off the rack, out of the box glove that hadn't been broken in at all, still closing, but with effort. And then, you know, quick spin in the skate oven, like Carey Price does, comes out and it's just like bam, 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 just closes so easy. So make sure you watch the video to check that out. And I got to say, for the folks that are listening on the podcast, we have to have this discussion. I haven't done it myself, but I know others have. Obviously, Cam at the hockey shop has to give you the warning not to try this at home. But I know people do try this at home. We can't tell you to, because we are not going to pay for the glove when you screw it up and turn the oven too high, like Darren once did. But you can use the oven at home, according to our David Hutchison, who is, read the legal disclosure here, not responsible for anybody who tries to do this at home, but turns the temperature up too high and melts their gloves and tries to pretend it's our fault. Did I read that fast enough to be legalese?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I know, look, we know that a lot of our listeners are probably going to hop on Google and find out if they can do it themselves at home. And that's exactly what I did a long time ago. And I don't know if this means I'm the dumb parent of the year or I am the parent of the year, but I just let my kid go for it and see what happens. When we heard, I think it was on one of our InGoal things where I discovered that the foams in there are heat moldable and wanted to give it a go. And we've done it countless times at home with the proviso. We make sure it never is in contact with any of the metal parts of the oven because I'm worried about how well they conduct heat. And we put it on a baking sheet with like a silicone mat down, one of those silicone baking mats, so that none of the heat is transferred directly through to the glove there.
Married to an Epicurean, so it's called a silpat.
You would know, Woody. You would know.
A silpat, folks. That layer there. Married to an Epicurean, what can I say? She loves to cook.
Yeah, never mind. Anyway, but we've done it as part of the break-in process. We've done it just to sort of keep the feel and the shape in the glove. Never had the pleasure of Mr. Price's skate oven just as he's about to hit the ice, but that would be, well, they've got portable skate sharpeners for everybody now, so how long is it going to be before everybody's packing around a skate oven too now?
I will admit that I did it, and I didn't take the top grill out, and the top grill burned the back of the glove, and that was disappointing for a brand new glove. I did that. I did it once. It will never happen again. So there's that part. And just if you do, like, just wait a little bit before you put your hand back in it. Yeah.
That sounds like personal experience, Darren.
Yeah,
I think Darren put it in at about 350, didn't you?
It sounds logical, but it's not. You're taking it out of the oven and you're really excited to get it going, and that thing gets a little warm inside. And the last one is, if you're doing this to just give it a tune up after you've used the glove a few times, make sure mom or your partner are not in the house when you're doing it, because the idea of you putting your glove in the oven is kind of gross to other people. So just there's a couple of warnings if you decide to go down that path, and if you do to go down that path, nobody's responsible but yourself.
Hey, let's give some love to somebody who's done videos on this and has a method that he uses and has put it online. Let's give some love to the Goalie Gear Nerd, who has a tutorial, I think, somewhere on his site. I don't know if that's the number one way to do it, but if you're looking, we're not going to tell you to go do it, but he's got some information on his Instagram page, and that'll sort of, at least there's a process there and some guidelines, and compared to what we're doing today.
Woody, I don't know if you remember, but many years ago, we did a factory tour for one of the manufacturers, and I remember seeing a standard kitchen oven set up in the back of the factory. And I asked what that was all about, and it was exactly about breaking in the glove. They weren't using a skate oven. I don't know if they didn't exist back in the early days when we did this, Woody, but it was a standard kitchen oven. And then they also had sort of a mechanical device that they'd created in-house to open and close the glove. as part of the regular break-in process. I can't imagine that's for every glove they make. It's probably just for the top-end pro stuff. But yeah, just an interesting little thing that we saw there. But do be careful and don't set it at 350 like Darren. 175 we used. As low as the oven will go. You're warming your glove. You're not baking it.
Right. You're not cooking chicken fingers at the same time as
no. And by the way, Woody, it's not a microwave oven you put it in. Don't do that. The metal eyelets won't like your microwave.
What's the difference?
But wait, your Epicurean household probably doesn't own a microwave.
No. The microwave is for me and the kids. Everything else is for my wife, who likes to cook nice things to make us way more.
Do you guys know what the difference between a skate oven and a regular oven is?
I would assume it's just the max temperature. It probably has a lower peak temperature.
I think it's probably convection as well. I think it's blowing the air in there, which Epicurean Woody can figure out why that matters. But I'm pretty sure
now
there's a fan
I
at the
get
back
to try
of those
my wife's Wolf convection oven on my glove. I think that would go over well, especially if it's been used. Imagine adding that scent to the next souffle.
Having that air flowing around. Woohoo! That's awesome.
Don't do that with an old glove.
I got my 20th wedding anniversary coming up next week, boys. You guys are single-handedly going to prevent me from making 21.
Woody and I are going to be exchanging notes all weekend about convection ovens. Let's get into our feature interview, and just one more note on the Olympics. One of the best names in goaltending, Patrick Rybar of Slovakia. They win the bronze medal in the men's tournament. That is just when you hear that name and it's a goaltender, you think strength and just a blockade in front of the net. And then I got thinking, well, Rybar is good, but why not? Like Woll would be way better. And that leads us into our feature interview by Sensorina with Joseph Woll. And Sensorina got some stuff going on right now, Hutch.
You can't build a strong wall without a little bit of rebar.
Yes.
Those two would make a great goalie pair at some point down the line, wouldn't they? Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, thanks to our friends at Sensorina once again for sponsoring the feature interview, as they always do. Two things I wanted to get to about Sensorina today, boys. One, just remind everybody the Hockey Skills Global Tour. It's in its last month. And as we've talked about before, they always put the drills out for you to practice at the beginning of the month, but then there's a week when the scores actually count, and that's this week coming up. Starting Monday, February 21st through 28th is when the scores count. Get in there. It's your last chance to win some signed memorabilia, this time from a Czech League team. And if you are at the top, you're going to be able to compete in the finals and for a chance to win a trip to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So just an incredible opportunity to compare yourself with other goalies around the world. Everybody's on a level playing field with Sensorina. Same shooters, same rink, same skill. Just a great chance to compare yourself to everybody. So hop in on the Hockey Schools Tour with Sensorina this week. And then just wanted to finish it off, guys. We often talk about how great Sensorina is for us and other goaltenders we know. But I think it's great when people write in and tell us about it. So we had a reader hop on to the review. Like, we've published a review over at InGoal. You can find it. It's open, even if you're not a member, to find out our thoughts on Sensorina. A little bit old, time we updated it, I think, guys. But if you get in there, one of the comments out at the end is about from a beer leaguer who has been using Sensorina, and he just wanted to let us know. He said, I have had Sensorina for about 2 months now, and I just love it. Where have you been all my life? Comes to mind. Old beer leaguers like me don't have goalie coaches, nor do we get a real warm-up on the ice before games. And I think that's actually a really important point, guys. If you're a minor hockey goaltender, you're a beer leaguer, you might get 3, you might get 5 minutes. It's not like junior hockey in the NHL where you get a good thorough warm-up out there. Says, I find this an indispensable tool for warming up before games. By the time I hit the ice for my 3-minute warm-up, I've already seen 150 shots at velocities higher than I'm going to see on the ice. My puck tracking, play tracking, and angles have really improved. The best endorsement I can give comes from my teammates. Quote, you're playing better now than you were 2 years ago. Whatever you're doing, keep on doing it. So if you want to make your game better like another InGoal reader, I think you should give Sensorina a go, boys.
Woody, you don't have to write Hutch. You can just tell him that stuff.
It does say, oh, shoot, that was Kevin. No, it wasn't Kevin.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem with that, Darren, is not a single guy in my beer league team would tell me I've gotten better in the last 2 years.
Yes, I love it. I love the balance back and forth between the computer generated shooters and then the actual shooters that come down that are on video, and it's so real, like you're in a rink. The scoreboards at the back, like it's just it's so awesome. The different things, the box control, everything about it, and I can't get enough of it. We've got a great kid here that's moving into his pro career as a part of our feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena in Joseph Woll, who I think we've all heard of coming up through the ranks, but never really got to know until this discussion, and his just ability to share with you his journey was intriguing. And I, like, every time I would do something, I'd walk out of the room, I'd come back and rewind it to make sure I didn't miss anything. That's what one of these this conversation was like for me, Woody.
Yeah, no, he was great, just open and honest, and a lot of great insights on his path to now. And I tell you what, make sure you stay tuned to InGoalMag.com, because we've got some pro reads coming up with Joseph as well. And, you know, I didn't know a ton about him. Like you said, I'd seen him play a few times, but I really dug into the video too, and I was really impressed. And then when I talked to him, it sort of matched. You can see how he, you know, there's an element of reads in there, but there's a strong technical foundation that continues to grow. And he talks a lot in this interview about sort of that process and how maybe a lot of it is more towards the read side of the game. And shameless plug, as you're going to hear, he's an InGoal member and enjoys the pro reads himself. So it was nice to get him being a part of that. As he told me, I'm not sure if it was on or before we were recording or not, that, you know, like that ability to sort of see other guys and how they're reading and breaking down plays is invaluable. And so I like, if it's good enough for Joseph Woll, it's good enough for everybody else. So make sure you check out Pro Reads. He'll be in there next week. And I as you guys just heard, I may have screwed this up during the interview, but because you guys were talking about rebar and Woll, and it's Woll, but I even clarified with him before, and then I'm sure, like everybody does, as we were talking, I probably slipped back into Woll as opposed to Woll. So there's a little more. Yeah,
I do.
It's okay though, because it's such a perfect goalie name.
Yeah, I see it, and I know it's Woll, and I still say Woll. I just I apologize, Joseph, but I commend you for your openness, and especially about reading the game. That's just a skill set that we don't pay enough attention to. Nobody pays enough attention to because it's all about things like the panda and the butt scratch, which is really cool.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
See, now I know we got to get and we don't want to. We've teased this interview long enough, but quick note on the panda, because I got some notes from some goalie coaches at very high levels, some that have worked in the National Hockey League, some that are played in the National Hockey League, about working to integrate the panda as a sharp angle, specific situation, post save alternative, and some really nice notes shared. From them to us. And so thanks again to Thomas Spear and Jordan Sigalette and Dustin Wolf for sort of helping walk us through that new approach to a dead angle technique. It's getting some traction around the hockey world, boys.
A new way to shut down the opposition, a wall with Woll. Here is the feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena on InGoal Radio, presented by the Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com.
Really excited to welcome to the program Joseph Woll, who made his NHL debut this year, has a long history representing the United States at various international competitions, World Juniors included. Toronto Maple Leafs recently signed a contract extension with the Leafs. A lot of exciting things going on this year. We don't really know each other. Like, we haven't had a chance to have this conversation before, Joseph. So I feel like this is going to be a get to know you session for me and for all of our audience. I know they're excited to hear it. So let's start with where you're at now. Excitement over the extension and how this year has gone. Your first taste of the NHL. Like, are you soaking this all in, or does it feel like a bit of a whirlwind at times?
Yeah, Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me on. Been a big fan of InGoal for a long time, so it's pretty cool to get to sit here and talk with you. Yeah, this year's been a bit of a roller coaster. Truthfully, it feels like the first couple years of my pro career have been pretty crazy. My first year being when COVID first came out, and then going into the bubble, and then last year starting in December, and we really haven't had a full year in my pro career so far that's been normal. And I think it's actually worked out to my advantage in a way that I've gotten some pretty cool experiences out of it, and had some awesome experiences with the Leafs early on, and just being able to learn and take all that stuff in was really important for me. So yeah, I think this year especially, I feel like for the first time maybe in these 3 years, I've kind of started to find the best version of my game, and being able to take all this information in. It feels like I'm kind of able to sort through it and figure out the things that are most important for my game, and I feel like that's where I've had success this year at different times, and I feel like that's more so the way that I'm feeling out there is I'm just allowing myself to bring, I guess, the best qualities of my game forward.
Well, the beauty of the InGoal radio podcast and the InGoal magazine audience, as you know, as a member, that it's all goalies. So if you're not a goalie, it doesn't matter. But if you are a goalie, we're going to ask. So can you give us some details on what some of those things are that you've sort of figured out, and when to add to your game for starters, and when to add them? Like, what's that process been like? Is it largely mentored? Is it the coaches helping you, or is there a lot of stuff where you've got to figure it out on your own too, like with their guidance?
Yeah, I think definitely early on, I was very fortunate to work with John Elkin and Stevie Briere pretty much from the start of being here. And they're both very, very knowledgeable people when it comes to, the technical aspect of goaltending and the mental part of it. And truthfully, it just felt like when I got here, I was kind of opened up to things that I'd never really thought about as being important. Or it feels like, throughout my career, I had played more relying on my athleticism to make saves, and not so much as understanding the importance of, managing my depth and being patient, and in learning that, it feels like that I allow my athleticism to come out more, as opposed to relying on it, where that's where I would say is one of the strengths of my game. It feels like it can be used appropriately and not resorted to as much. And I really would say that's the biggest technical thing, is just kind of reeling it in a bit.
Okay. So almost not even technical, is more tactical, like in terms of not being aggressive. Or are we talking mostly off the rush, Joseph, or even on end zone? Are you finding yourself playing a more conservative positional game?
I think that more so just the importance of the ability to read the game was brought to my attention, very quickly here. And I think that, as you see goalies, every goalie has a little bit of a different style. Every goalie plays a little bit differently on the rush or end zone, or what they're doing on the post. And, every goalie has a little bit different depth and what they feel comfortable with. But, when you're trying to find, the similarities of goalies that have success and play at an NHL level and, the best in the world, I think there are some things that are similar, right? Like their ability to read the play and let the play come to them, and trust themselves in that. And I think consistency as well is a really big thing. And I think those things were brought to my attention more than ever before. And then obviously there's a lot of, small little tweaks technically that we've worked on, and in terms of hand position, stick position, and working on staying bigger in my stance, and how you're playing certain situations. But I would say the overarching theme is having that ability to read the play and trust yourself to be able to read the play. And in that, I feel like I can play, a little, not necessarily that I'm not being aggressive and always staying in my, staying back and retreating. And I think it's more just, having the patience to be able to get out and trust yourself that you can get to these different spots and understand the different options, and And then that's when I can allow my athleticism to kind of, come out of hiding.
So when you say reading the play, obviously that part of that becomes experience based, especially as a young pro, right? Like first taste of the American Hockey League, and at a time when it was tough to get settled because, as you said, your first year pro, COVID hit. A lot of starts and stops for the past couple of seasons. Is there a way, and obviously we're biased here, it's what we're trying to do with pro reads at InGoal Mag, is show young kids just how much information you guys process in real time at the high level. Understanding you needed to sort of do that differently or more or trust your reads. Is there a way to learn it? Like was it video work, constant reinforcement? Is it stuff you're doing on your own watching film? Like, I guess the big question I should have just asked at the beginning here is, how do you get better at reading the game?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And like you mentioned, I really do think it's not one specific thing. And truthfully, I feel like with goaltending, there's not one specific thing that's going to get you there, right? There's a whole bucket, and it's a whole variety of different things you're able to work on and how you're able to grow on and off the ice. So I think in terms of reading the game, like, yes, obviously experience is probably the best teacher. Being able to just have games and see what happens within a game. It's hard to replicate that exactly in any other situation. But then, trying to do drills on the ice that always have an aspect of reading the play, as opposed to, you know exactly what's going to happen. You know exactly your depth. Like, there's no options for the guy. He's just coming down and there's one option. So I think being able to add that in develops that patience and ability to read and trying to let the game come to you rather than trying to, force a save or force things to happen.
I was going to say, it's the easiest thing to say, let it come to you, but sometimes it's the hardest thing to do, especially at that level. Have the patience, right?
Right. And I think video is important, being able to, watch what other guys are doing and just to understand that there's more than one way to play things as well. That I don't believe that there's one way that's right. If you look at all the goalies in the league, everyone's a little bit different. And that's the beauty of it. So yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of different ways. And, ultimately, I think we gravitate towards things that we feel help us more. And I think that's one thing I've really learned in, kind of my pro career so far, is that everyone is a little bit different and no one's mind is the same. No one's style of play is the same. And I always fell into the trap of, like imitation, of trying, like thinking if I did this like him, well, then that would be good. Then you're set. But I think being able to understand that, like, as a person, you're unique, and the way you think and the way you react and your instincts are all different from the next person. And that's an awesome thing. And I think being able to embrace, your differences and how you are and how you play, is pretty cool. And then it's finding the best version of that. And then that's where I think that you ultimately will find, success or consistency or whatever you're looking for.
It's funny because I was gonna say we got to clip the part where you say you're a longtime InGoal magazine fan, but I got to clip that last answer because you just basically summed up why I love this position and covering it this way. Is because there is no one way to do this. Eh? Like, it's that individual nature. Every guy has a different formula. Sometimes, as a young pro or as you move around from team to team, whether it's junior or organizations or just coaching staff changes, you can get voices that are insistent that it's this way or one way. Or, like you said, imitation, you get a bunch of different voices and you feel like you want to please them. It sounds like you're in a pretty good nurturing environment in terms of, it sounds like they're encouraging you to find those things and they're helping you find all those individual pieces and fit them together rather than trying to shove Joseph Woll into a predetermined box they have.
Yeah, and I think that's been, really what I've felt, especially more recently. I think early on, there were definitely things that I had to learn. And there were different technical parts of the game and different tactical parts and reads and stuff that I needed to get reps at and needed to learn, how to handle these situations when I'm faced with them. But, I've mentioned John Elkin and Stevie Briere, and now we have Hannu Toivonen as our goalie coach. And he's been awesome. His philosophy is very much just be be the best you. Like there's no one way. And, it's something, I've always felt with all the goalie coaches here is that no one's really trying to make you a certain way. They're just trying to bring out what's in you. Right. And, sometimes parts of that need a little reeling in and get under control. But yeah, I think, ultimately no two goalies are the same. And that's the beauty of the position. It's the beauty of hockey. Like everyone's a little bit different. And I think, you do the world a disservice if you're trying to be someone else.
Well, you talked about imitation, and I think it's human nature, especially as goalies. I mean, we've seen it over the years where sometimes guys will just inadvertently watching their playing partner over the course of a season start to pick up habits, sometimes not even on purpose and sometimes not always positive. Let's reel it back a little bit. How did Joseph Woll fall in love with goaltending? And who were the early guys, growing up in St. Louis, where we've seen some guys have success, but it's not a long list. Some good goalies certainly coming out of St. Louis, but who was the one that was your inspiration early on that you first imitated, and what age did we get started?
I think I first started playing like full year-round goaltending, maybe at like 8. I want to say like between 7 and 9, somewhere in that window. But yeah, I was a forward for the first few years, and every time we need a sub to come play goalie, I would always love and try to volunteer. I think the first thing I loved was the gear, and it's probably a common theme of a lot of goalies. But yeah, I started out then, and funny enough, I think the first goalie I actually started to really love was Nikolai Hobby-Bulin back in the day. But then I slowly started to really like Carey Price, and I think I would say he's been consistently my favorite guy that I've looked up to for a long time. And I would say he's probably the first guy I would say that I tried to imitate. I think I was probably too young to try to imitate Hobby-Bulin, but once I started to like Price, it was more in that stage of getting a little more serious about it and, going to like goalie training and different stuff like that.
Often imitated, not a bad sort of guy to sort of model your game after. What were some of the early influences you talk about? Like, when did you get your first goalie coach? Who were some of those early influences growing up in St. Louis? I seem to recall like it was the Racine Goalie Academy a part of your path there as well. And okay, I'm glad I'm right. But some of the early influences and sort of how you evolved. I love that you played forward and played out for so long, because it feels like that can sometimes be an advantage when we talk about reading the game and seeing those patterns.
Yeah. I think a big thing is just making sure that you're able to skate too before you start playing goalie. I think a lot of people can hop in too soon, and it's a tough thing you got to manage, where if someone wants to play goalie so bad, you're not keeping them from doing what they want to do. But it's also, I think, important when you're young to emphasize skating, because that's obviously a big part of the game. And like you said, yeah, Bruce, I would say Bruce Racine was definitely my earliest and biggest influence, I would say, growing up. When I first started going to training with him, and then, I've worked with him for years now. And it was pretty cool. When I was younger, we had some good goalies, and Luko Pelka was unbelievable back when we were playing junior hockey and stuff. And we had a really good crew of guys. So it was really fun to, go in there and see a lot of really good goalies. And Bruce was definitely a huge influence for me. He's a great person, and was just someone that, made it enjoyable to come and do some work on the ice, and was, as good of a person on and off the ice.
Well, we won't hold it against him because sometimes I know he employs, or maybe he's just pretending to be employed by Bruce, Mr. Van Gate. Have you had any? Have you had the pleasure of the legend himself, KVG, trying to instill the wisdom of beer leagues upon you? Did you just put the earplugs in?
Yeah, he's around the rink a lot, so I end up seeing him a pretty good amount. Actually, I think this past summer he let me come on and rip around a little bit during some of his lesson ice, and he's a great guy. I know he has the Kane Van Gate thing going, but I knew him before that really all started. He actually used to be at a high school that I was considering going to, and before that all started. Yeah, he's a really good guy as well, and him and Bruce have a pretty good relationship over the years. So
Yeah, so I never know where to, like, because I know the persona, the online, I know the real name, I won't say it, but I also know that, like, as much as he makes jokes about beer league and we like to poke fun and we go back and forth, the reality is he was also a really good goaltender. Like, was one of the goalies on the roster at Bowling Green at one point, played
Yeah.
with some big names, and has done some good things as a coach. So we want to chirp him, but also recognize that there's behind the alter ego, there's a real good goalie and goalie person there. Any other influences? Like, we know, like, I know obviously St. Louis, and I don't want to pigeonhole this, but just from that area, guys like Mike McKenna and Ben Bishop and guys who have, gone on and done great things as pros. Were there ever any run-ins, encounters where they helped you along the way, or where they became an inspiration to you?
yeah, it's tough when you go through it. I feel like I'm always going to leave someone out. I could go on for a day trying to list all the people that have had a positive influence on me. I would say I was very lucky too, in that when I was growing up playing hockey in St. Louis, we had a lot of ex-NHL players come back and coach. So guys like Keith Kachuk and Jeff Brown, Al McKennis,
I heard of them.
like all these guys, and that was right around my age group. So we got very, very lucky that I guess 96 to 99 birth year, maybe, like that little pocket was so good in St. Louis. And we still have I think that really kind of jump started some growth in hockey in St. Louis, but definitely right around my age group was, some special players and obviously special coaches. And I think that really helped to influence me early on. And then you mentioned Mike McKenna. He also has a good relationship with Bruce. So he would come out in the summers and stuff and rip some pucks on us. Trying to think. Yeah, I met Bish when I was younger. I've never had a real relationship with him. I think I've just been able to, kind of meet him over the years and stuff. And seems like a really great guy as well. So yeah, I think, all these people that come back to St. Louis, it's all positive. And couldn't take enough time to name all the people
we put you on the spot, so we'll make sure if anybody was missed, that wasn't Joseph's fault. We put him on the spot and threw a whole bunch of names on him. From there, it's on to the U.S. national team development program. That decision, influences, and how'd you grow? You talked about this year and the past couple of years making tactical and technical adjustments. As you hit this age group, what was some of the biggest things that started to evolve and change in your game? When you're at US NTTB, you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's it's a mouthful. When I guess when I first heard of it, it was probably through Luke Opilka, actually, because he was a year older, and that was something he was pursuing, and then he ended up making the team. So I think as soon as I heard about it, I knew that it was something I wanted to do. And as soon as I got, offered the opportunity to play there, it was a no-brainer for me. And definitely hard leaving home at that age, but I had full support from my family and my friends, and the family I stayed with we still have a very good relationship with them. I call them my family now. So I think that really helped too, that I developed almost a second family. So it didn't feel like I was off on my own. They have two sons, so I feel like they're my brothers now, and I think that really helped out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, so you start U17 there, and you go U18, and I was gonna ask you for the biggest memory, but I feel like that would be asking you for the people you met in St. Louis. There is a deep list of international events that you played in and had an opportunity, right up to World Junior Championships, obviously, but 4 nations in Switzerland, and 5 nations in Russia. What an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, the trip to Switzerland was pretty special. We stayed pretty much on the side of a mountain. You look out your window, and I love mountains.
It's beautiful, It's beautiful.
Oh, it was crazy. I really don't think I could pinpoint a single memory. I think it was, accumulation of a lot of, small, really great memories that make it, such a great time in my life. And it's a special situation that you're thrown into, I think, there. And for a lot of guys, it's kind of the first step in, realizing that hockey be taken, seriously. Like for the first time, I actually could see myself playing like college hockey or something. And I think that's a hump you have to get over is the belief you have. And for me at least, that was kind of the first time I realized like, hey, like I think I could probably play college hockey. Like be pretty sweet. Yeah.
Okay, so by the time you finish with the U.S. National Team Development Program, which is easier to say than the abbreviation, by the way, you're drafted in the third round by the Toronto Maple Leafs. I got to think that did a lot for the belief. Like, where in that process you talk about, hey, I could play college hockey.
Mhm.
When did what you're doing now become something that, like, hey, like this is something I can do as a career?
Yeah, I think it's always interesting. Like everyone always has the dream when they're younger.
Of course.
When the dream slowly shifts into being possible reality, it's weird. It's awesome, but it's weird. So I think, it was slowly understanding like, hey, like I think I could play college hockey, and then, hey, like I think I could maybe go past college, and I think I could see that. And I think, sometimes even when you're in that spot, you may not have the full belief. Like it still feels a little weird. And I think everyone probably has experienced feeling like they don't belong in a sense or something. And I think that's very important, is understanding that you do belong. And I think that's a big hump. At least I know that I've had to get over in the past. But once you get over that, it's very freeing, I think.
So off to Boston College after getting drafted. Actually, first, what was your memories? I mean, draft was in Buffalo that year, so they didn't pick a picturesque necessarily. Like we didn't have mountains in the background like Switzerland for your draft year. But what do you remember of that experience? Family there, lots of friends. What was? Yeah, I'm assuming you attended if you expected to be picked that high.
Yeah. My family and my billet family actually were there.
Awesome.
So very special, obviously, and funny enough, that was where I made my debut. So it was kind of funny coming full circle back to Buffalo and had my billet family there again. So it was it was a pretty sweet experience. And actually that year too, we had 5 guys from St. Louis and my age group get drafted in the first round, which was insane. So pretty special year for St. Louis as well. It was a pretty cool draft.
Pretty cool draft party too, I'm imagining. That's awesome. So I want to get to that debut because I feel like I've sort of left the big moment for the end here because what that must be like emotionally and managing all that. But I don't want to skip Boston College because the path to here, you spend 3 full seasons at BC. Some of the influences there. Hopefully I don't put my foot in my mouth here. I want to say Mike Ayers is the goalie coach at the time there. So, and following... You would have been coming, right after Thatcher Demko? Like in terms of, or in that window? Like it's a pretty rich tradition there.
We had a pretty good string of goalies. We had Demmer, and then I came in right after him, and then Nider came in right after me. So we had a nice little string of goalies.
Well, and here in Vancouver, as soon as they drafted Demko, I mean, all the comparisons went to Corey Schneider. So just a strong history in general of great goaltending.
Yeah.
What's it like to be part of that? You feel pressure?
Yeah, I think naturally you feel a little bit of pressure in that situation, especially because they were so good that year. Like they made it to the Frozen Four, I believe. Like they had such a good team. And then, you come into a place with that much history and, history of success and winning and all that. And it's definitely a little daunting at first, but I think ultimately, like I want to write my own story and, do my own thing. So it was, it was just cool to be able to be a part of that, I think. And yeah, you mentioned Mike Ayers, and I don't want to leave Kevin Ryder out because he was the goalie coach at the U.S. program. And it's like, I could never say how fortunate I am to have been with all these people, Bruce being kind of the first person to introduce me to, technique and, sharpening my game up a little bit. And then Kevin, took that to a whole nother level, technically. And I think he really set a lot of foundation. And then, Ayers is just a tremendous guy, like just an awesome guy to be around. And, really helped to dial in some of those details and, ultimately just wanted me to play as the best version of me. So I think I've taken some really great things from from all these different people. And yeah, it's just, I feel very lucky to have all of them in my life.
Well, I want to ask you actually for some technical details on Kevin Ryder, a name I've heard a lot of great things about from a coaching perspective, but not to dismiss any of the other ones, but just because you mentioned technique specifically there. But it sounds like there's the lesson here as you get all these different voices is to be conscientiously looking to take things away from each one, find things that you can add as a positive to your game and to your experiences, as opposed to, because that can be tough as you get settled and comfortable with one, and now you got a different voice telling you to maybe do something a little differently. Not everybody adapts well to that.
Yeah, I think that's where I feel really lucky is that throughout this whole journey, no one's ever really tried to change, kind of the core of my game and who I am. So I think everyone's just always tried to amplify that and bring out the best in what's there. And, whether I'm saying I took, technical things, or it's really hard to label something I've taken because,
right.
You spend years with these people and there's so much that they teach you. And probably the best thing is just developing a relationship, take it further than hockey. Just having these awesome people that I've been able to meet and have good relationships with.
What were some of give me one example with Kevin of something that evolved while you were with the National Development Team program, that maybe wasn't in your game or was raw in your game that you changed. And we hear a lot about post play and things like that right now. Is there anything that jumps out as hey, I added that here and that's always going to be a staple?
Yeah, he was dialed in on the post play. So I was there with Jake Ottinger as well. So we got our post play really really dialed in. I actually remember the summer before going to BC, I would always go skate on post, and I wanted to adjust and try to go the toe ties just to get some more coverage. I actually, since we played the international games and played Sweden and stuff like that all the time, there's this guy, and we play against him now, Philip Gustafsson, with Ottawa. Yep. And he was also the goalie we played, and he was so smooth at the reverse. And I remember me and Otter would always watch him and just talk about how silky and smooth the Swedes always are with their post play. So the summer before BC, I wanted to add that into my game. So we spent a pretty good amount of time just working on toe tie, and lucky enough, by the time I got to BC, it was something that felt really natural, and I think that's one of the really strong areas in my game now.
So I gotta ask, give me some, is it just reps? What's the key to sort of getting to? Because again, we know skate on post has limitations, right? There leaves a gap. For years, we were seeing sort of short side, goals go in that gap. It can be a tough area to get caught in, and yet going toe tie or toe box on post with the skate slightly inside, the margin for error there, it's a pretty precise movement. We know, I'm guessing repetition would be a big part of it. What about setup? What about how you set up your skates and the gap between the bottom of your pad, your toe tie? What did you have to modify anything? We had speaking of Boston College, we had Demko on before the season started, and he had a very precise, based on the diameter of the post, how long his toe tie should be. So was that part of your process of figuring it out? And where are you at now with the toe tie gaps? I can't believe I'm asking this much about toe ties.
Yeah, no. So I think one thing quickly, now I've kind of gotten into, I do it all now. I don't strictly go into one or the other. I think there's a situation for a toe tie. I think there's a situation for the skate. I think there's a situation overlap, and I think there's a situation to go post. I think for a lot of years, you're trying to find a one size fits all. And I don't necessarily know if that's, I think that whatever you do, it's a pro and a con. You're giving something up to have something else.
And the other thing is, I remember Freddie, and I sense this might come from Steve Briere a little bit too, because I remember Briere and Freddie, even if there was a perfect way for a certain situation, the reality of the dynamic nature of the game is you're not always going to hit your spot perfectly. And so how do you adapt to be able to move out of the other options?
Right. So I think it's good to have all of them in your toolbox. So I do believe that there's a time that's right for each of them. And then moving from the skate to the toe ties, I actually think it's easier to hit the toe ties, because I think that hitting the skate, is such a small margin for error, because if you hit too much in the toe, then you don't have like right. If you hit too much in the toe, then you miss it, and if you hit too much in the mid blade, then you don't have like the leverage to be able to open up and close it off. So I think it's like a very, very small margin.
There's a sweet spot to go skate blade on post.
Spot. And then when I went to toe ties, I made the slack in my skate very loose. Like it's got to be like that. Like it's good.
That's gonna work. I don't know if that's gonna work for our podcast audience. We might have to clip you holding your fingers apart. It looks like 4 inches.
4 inches. Like,
yeah, you're not quite Mike Condon length when he was with Montreal and Ottawa, but pretty long.
Yeah, no, it's iPhone Max, like a little bit, maybe just a little smaller than the iPhone. Like, a lot of slack though. And I find that when I do that, like, that's a pretty big sweet spot. Like you're almost you're anywhere over there, you're right on it. Like you latch on it. Yeah, and I don't necessarily always use that though anymore, but I've kept the toe tie slack though.
Okay, I love that, and I love the fact that you have to diversify your options. As we've throughout this conversation, there's no one way to skin this. Mm-hmm. I gotta ask though, what's like you've switched equipment companies recently. You're in the Bauer now. When you talk about toe ties in that gap, are you just using like a skate lace, or are you using like we've seen like this evolution of elastic and sort of bungee type products, and yet when it comes to the precision of moving in and off the post, one of the things we've talked about at InGoal is that like if you're going toe tie on the post and you're pushing off and there's give and elasticity to that toe tie, does it cost you some of that push? So I'm curious where you're at on that and what type of material you're using.
I've always just used skate lace. Truthfully, it's just because it's what comes on the pad. And so I just kind of keep it going. I've never tried the elastic. I know some guys like it because they feel it takes a little pressure off their knees. But I have so much slack that
there's no pressure anyways.
It does that in itself. I think this is a big thing that I've fallen into the imitation thing too, is like, oh, he's got this much, I need to have that to be good, and it's totally whatever makes you feel most comfortable. Like if you feel like there's not enough and it's hard to hit the post, then add some. And if you feel like you have too much slack and it's messing you up, then take some off. Like it's so easy to fall in that like trap of like trying to be so specific with it, but it's just like, I don't use a bootstrap. Some other guy does because he likes how it feels. Like it's completely based off of what you like and what makes you most comfortable out there. I really believe.
Love it. Not to dwell too long on gear, but there's a whole bunch of goalie listening to this that are geeking out on this. So I got to ask, like that switch, like that's a big switch to the Bauer product. You're in the Hyperlight now. What did you notice right away? What took some adjustment time? What do you like about wearing the Bauer product now? Yeah,
well, so I used Vaughn my whole life.
Right.
I think my first pair of pads was Brian's, then I had a pair of TPS, and then I have Vaughn. And since then, I've worn Vaughn my whole life. And
which is why I had to ask, because we were kind of surprised.
And it's nothing. No, there's absolutely nothing wrong with their gear. Like I love their gear and I love the people that I've worked with there. And yeah, I think I just was kind of looking at maybe changing something up. I've been wearing it my whole life and wanted to explore, some other stuff. And I actually started the year using True, but the pads ended up being like a little too big, didn't fit quite right. And I had a pair of Bauer demos that they had sent me from the summer, and I was like, oh, I'll give these a shot. And I actually ended up really liking them. And again, it's it completely based off of feel and whatever you like. I just found that I just feel a little bit lighter moving. They feel solid. They hit and they're smooth. And I think the biggest thing I like is the glove more so than anything. The glove is like a magnet. Like it's unbelievable. So I think I really loved the glove, and then I wore all the other stuff and liked it as well. And just kind of went from there, and then here I am wearing Power. So,
do you know if it's a stock Hyperlight glove?
There's a new like the Mach.
The Mach, yeah. Okay, so it's a yeah.
I think it's. That was very recent. I just switched to that. Before I had used like the 2S or the 3S, the Supreme glove.
So a Supreme glove sort of style 600 break type of,
Yeah,
just that
yeah.
type of break. Yeah, so
That's
that
what I've
totally would
used,
make
and
sense.
they just came out with this new glove, so I've been
Yeah.
using that, and it's
Sick.
very similar. It's the
Yeah.
back of it's a little better, like how your hand fits in it. But
I'm sworn to secrecy, no pictures and all that kind of stuff, but I've had one on and seen it, and it's a nice product. Did you notice a difference? And we got to ask this because we do all these reviews. Like, did you notice a difference in the rebounds or the sliding? A couple of things that Bauer sort of has become synonymous with, maybe, and actually everyone else has sort of tried to follow, I think. So it's an area where I think maybe the gap has shrunk, but an area where, especially on rebounds, I think, it's a little different.
Yeah, definitely different coming from Vaughn. Vaughn, it's just a very different material they use. Like the Bauers feel more springy, the Vaughns are a little more traditional feel of a pad. I don't think that I liked them necessarily for any reason of how the puck hits.
It's just the feel.
I don't even know which one I'd prefer. If I'd rather have the rebound next to me or if I'd rather shoot it out. I always hear people saying like, "Oh, I like these because it keeps the rebound close." I don't even truthfully know which I would prefer. It's like this one shoots the rebound, so I know it shoots the rebound, so I'm ready to get there.
It's not like you've had to adjust your game based on that. You like the feel of the product, and that's why you stick with it.
Yeah, I think I just really like the feel of them. I like how I feel moving. I think was the biggest thing, is that I feel like I can move quick and smooth, and it just felt like it fit my game, I guess. Back to the feel. It's just whatever,
all about the feel.
Whatever makes you feel like you get the best chance to stop the puck.
And it's also nice when you're a pro and you have all these options you get to try.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it is 8-year-old Joseph Woll's looking at all this gear to test out, and he's loving it.
Man, you should have seen my basement this summer. I was doing all the demo stuff, so I had like a set of Bauers and Trues and Vaughns and my old pads. Like, it was hilarious. They're a goalie gear nerd's dream.
You've got all our listeners are just drooling right now as they're listening to this interview. They're like,
I'd literally go to the rink and be like, which one do I want to wear today?
As much as whether it's based on performance or just based on feel, I don't want to go Ichiro Suzuki, the famous Mariners hitter who kept his bats in a humidor. I don't know that we need to go to that level, but you probably do need, whether it's feel or you need to sort of be in tune with your equipment. It matters at this level. Fine details can make a difference.
Yeah. I would, obviously you don't want any performance issues from it. Like if you can't catch the puck in the glove, maybe try a different glove or try to get better at catching the puck. But yeah, I would say if there's a fatal flaw in the gear you're using, I think maybe look at doing something else. But all the gear now is so good that I really feel like it's all about feel, right? Because they make softer pads, they make stiffer pads. I don't think one's necessarily better than the other. It's just what you'd prefer and what feels like fits your game more.
Isn't that the beauty though? We have more options than ever before and unique, like different goaltenders. Okay, I want to get to Buffalo and NHL debut, but I do have one more because it's me. USA Hockey. You talked about Jake and your time with the development program. Bit of a union there. Like how much pride? Like I mentioned Demko and we see Gibbs. Like the rise of USA Hockey and goaltending. I know about the 51-30 program. Like, is there a camaraderie? Maybe not amongst the whole group, but it feels like they've built something here where you guys are in touch with each other, maybe more regularly than other nations are as a goalie union. The separate little niche of the goalie, the U.S. department of the goalie union.
Yeah, no. It's been awesome for USA Hockey seeing, the goalies that have come out of the U.S. the past few years. And I think it's really a testament to, what USA Hockey's been doing. Like we've had the Strelo goaltending camps that I grew up with, which were awesome, being able to, be out there with guys that were older than me and younger than me and just see all the up and coming guys that now are stars in the NHL. And, just getting those relationships started. And
do you have any that stand out? Like any that you stay in touch with or anybody that helped you along the way, reaching out at any point in your career based on having met them at Strelo?
Again, it's really hard to pick one because you're with a few age groups and I got to meet all the goalies, all the 99 birth years and all the 97 birth years and just it's just awesome to be around all of them and have a week dedicated to just getting to know each other, playing hockey, and doing some fun stuff. So, yeah, I think that's been awesome. And then, obviously just international tournaments and all this stuff with USA Hockey has been great. I would say like definitely the goalie I have the best relationship with would be Otter, just because we spent 2 years at the program together, and then both played in Boston for 3 years, which was awesome. So we got to be teammates, and then went to playing against each other, and then playing against each other in the American League. So just waiting on playing against each other in the National League. He looks like he's there to stay. So I guess that one's on me to get that, fill that. So, but no, it's awesome seeing, especially all the goalies in USA Hockey being so successful, and then especially Otter, just because of the relationship we have, and it's really cool to see him doing so well.
Perfect segue. Talk about getting to the National Hockey League. You get there this year, first game in Buffalo. How do you, I just can't even imagine, right? Like, this is part of your life and a career path. And so you've trained yourself, I imagine. I was actually going to ask you mental coaches that have helped you along the way too, if there's anybody that jumps out, to deal with this moment. But as Joe Blow, even though I've covered the league for 20 years, I still have trouble imagining what it would be like to take that ice for the first time, and how you compartmentalize all those different emotions and go out there and just perform like you can. What's that like?
Difficult. The first was interesting. Yeah. I remember when they first told me I was going to play, when Kiefer came up to me and told me, that was a really cool moment. Like, that was a really special moment. Just, you work your whole life towards something, or, and just knowing that I was going to be able to play and that I was going to get that experience was pretty cool. So that moment was actually very special for me. And then
how much notice was that day before? Or?
No, it was a few days before, which was kind of hard, because then I'm sitting there thinking about it. I think just accepting that I was going to be nervous beyond belief. And I've had a few games like that over my career that I knew I was just going to be insanely nervous for. And I think best way to handle that, I think, is just embrace it. Like, pretty cool. It's like, I think a funny analogy is like, it's the same feeling you get when you're like getting ready to go on a roller coaster and you pay to go to amusement park and get that feeling on a roller coaster. And so many people try to like push that feeling of nerve or, worry and stuff aside, but it's like, just means something awesome is coming. That game was actually pretty tough, because there was a ton of nerves. And even if you want to embrace it all, it's still difficult to get to a spot where you're just out there, playing hockey. I think actually the second game I played, I felt much, much more like myself. And the ones after that as well. I think the first one was almost a hump to get over, to show myself that I could play there.
And then the next one, you're just, do you feel like more of a routine game preparation without all the extra thoughts by that? I mean, you pitched a shutout in the next one against the Islanders, so not a shabby performance at all. You just feel like you go back to being, game day routine, as opposed to, oh my God, this is my first.
Yeah. It felt more like that. It's obviously it's a really cool moment and very special. And, all the games were awesome. It was just nice to have it feel more like just another game. I think that's where I really felt, started to really feel good.
Any preparation tips, as much as like the nerves are going to be there no matter what? Was there any old lessons you learned from mental skills coaches along the ways that sort of helped you, whether it was in that first game or through those first 4 starts? Just sort of, what are some of your anchors mentally, whether it's within a game or preparing for, like I said, your first game's different, but the next ones that sort of allow you to sort of settle into that moment?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I realized in my first game is that, as big as you can make the moment, it's just a hockey game. And, it's just, it doesn't really feel that much different. It just feels like you're playing a hockey game, which is, I think, the beauty of it. And that's kind of what I let myself come to, I think, after that first game more. It's just another hockey game. Just go out and enjoy it, whatever happens. Playing in the National Hockey League. If I get shelled for 10, like I'm playing in the NHL, it's pretty cool. I would say, I think my preparation and stuff, I mean, I try to keep it consistent regardless, like even for practice and stuff. I've actually developed this year, I've been pretty good about that, is having the same routine for practice and games. And I think that, just gets you in a good headspace that, you're preparing the exact same way, regardless of what you're doing. It's a morning skate, it's a game. I feel good about, where I'm at when I'm getting on the ice. I think that's a big thing about consistency. When everyone talks about consistency and you want to play consistent, well, like, you can't just wake up and say, okay, I want to be consistent. Like, I think you have to, develop some consistency that you can control to hopefully, then it shows up in something you ultimately don't really have control of.
And by doing it the same way practice to games, you're no longer making the games bigger or different.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, honestly, it's just better. Like, it's just more, you just get to enjoy it. Just kind of, I've talked about with John Elkin, he calls it your sanctuary, and just going out and just enjoying being, like, not many things in life that get you more present than that, at least I've found. So just trying to enjoy, every second of it, regardless of, and it's hard when you make mistakes, and obviously that stuff all creeps back in, but as much as you can, try and have some perspective, and regardless of what's happened, and just focusing on what you can. And I think that's probably the biggest thing in games for me, is that I've found, especially over the past year, is constantly, I do a lot of work, mind and breathing and meditation stuff. So I've almost kind of brought that to the ice, and it just feels like I'm out there meditating in a way. And that's the easiest thing for me, is just when I feel myself start to, go somewhere else, is just try to return to, something to get me back rooted in the moment.
Oh, see here, as I've taken way too much of your time already. I'm looking at the clock and I can't believe it. And then you bring up something that I want, another thread I want to pull on. Maybe we'll save that for when you come to town. Because I do, the one lesson I remember was everybody loses focus. There's no point pretending trying to focus for every second of every minute. It's the ability to recognize when it drifts and having a mechanism to bring it back. It sounds like
Yeah.
you've had that lesson too.
And it's fun. I think the funny thing about focus is that like, people are always trying to focus, but you don't need, like, if you're trying to focus, you're not focusing. Like, we all know how to focus. You know how to focus. You do it all the time. But as soon as you start to think about, like, trying to do it, or I want to be focused, well, you're not focused, because you're thinking about it. Like, focus.
You're focusing on focusing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not focusing. So I think that's where a lot of the mental work comes in, because I would say more than anything, that's been the biggest growth in my game, by far. I think the technical stuff is very important, but, as we've talked about, like, everyone ultimately has their own different technique and their own unique way of playing. I found that has definitely been by far the biggest thing that I've kind of started down a path towards. And I think that's a testament to all the people in this organization and how much importance they put on that stuff. Where it's not all physical. You're not just going on the ice and playing hockey. Like, it's about, they have people to help you being, in life, and people, more so than just a hockey player. And I'd say that's definitely the biggest growth I've had.
I love it. Listen, can't wait to catch up with you in the National Hockey League when you come through town. As you said, you and Jake, you and Otter, maybe in the American Hockey League if you're still there when you get here. I've really enjoyed this. I know our audience is going to enjoy this as well. Joseph, thank you so much for all your time today. This was an awesome interview. Like I said, felt like we wanted to get to know Joseph Woll, and man, do I feel like we know you as a goaltender and a little bit as a person, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share that with us.
Yeah, well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you having me on, and look to do it again sometime.
Cool. Like, there's a couple of Jeremy Swayman I think back to your conversation with Jeremy, and that's a guy that I didn't know a lot about personally, was fascinated and started following him. And then all of a sudden he blew up and became this guy in Boston. And I think that same way about Joseph Woll is now I can't get enough about where he is, what starts he's getting. I love his journey. Wins his first 3 starts, has a shutout in there, and talks about the nervousness. Like everything about him is relatable.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I had always followed because in part our job's to follow, So, but loosely a little bit.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm going to have a much closer eye, and just there's a connection there. I think if you listen to that interview, you're automatically a Joseph Woll fan. Like you can't help but you're waiting to see when he gets his next start and that next opportunity, and you're rooting for him on some level. So like I said, he was gracious enough after that long interview to also do some pro reads with us. Look for the first of many from him up at InGoal Mag early this week, and a lot of new content up at ingoalmag.com. Over the past week, we're just really back into our stride as we're getting a little more access to some of these guys. Pro reads last week was with Cam Talbot coming off his first appearance in the NHL All-Star game. We had another mindset article from Pete Fry, the goalie mindset guy, about thinking big and sort of taking that mentality onto the ice. We had pro drills and tips with Ville Husso, who's like the hottest goalie in the NHL right now. We look at Clearsight Analytics adjusted stats. He's number 1 in save percentage differential. And despite playing half the games of other guys, he's in the top 5 in goals saved. So how he does his warm up with the Blues on a game day, pretty unique way that David Alexander walks through sort of the warm-ups rather than just sitting there on his knees static shooting. One of the drills starts from a face-off dot. So just a little more game-like, and allows the goalie to get his feet moving as well as his hands moving, as opposed to a lot of static shooting where you can really sort of get your feet locked into the ice a little bit and you're sort of in your save stance. Whereas as a goalie, we're not locked into that position very often. So I love David's approach to the warm-up with Ville. Some great tips in there, videos of all of it, and some guidelines and sort of tips that can be applied not just in a game day situation, but to drills as goalie coaches are building drills at any level, in any situation, pre-practice, post-practice, during practice. A lot of great tips in there. Of course, the Panda Post Lock. Folks, I will say this about the Panda Post Lock. For the goalie coaches out there that just looked at the social media tees and saw maybe not the best freeze frame we used because the goalie was in more of a traditional overlap. He hadn't sort of cheated to the middle or purposely gone flat along his goal line, turned up ice a little bit. Like, it's not just an overlap. If it was just an overlap, we would have just called it an overlap. There is a unique element and a very specific element, and there's a reason we call it the Panda Post Lock, the reason the Flames called it the Panda Post Lock. So try and make your way past the visuals of the social media thing and actually read the article before ripping on it. Is nothing new. Because as I said, I've got a former NHL goaltender now teaching it to his students, and it's new to him. So there is something new there, folks. We wouldn't post it otherwise. And then last, but certainly not least, a new series of pro drills. First of a 3-step progression on hand-in support featuring, speaking of hottest goalies in the league, Thatcher Demko with Ian Clark, walking through drills designed to make sure that when we move on pucks in tight, we maintain our seal, but also build our vertical coverage in sort of the proper order and with the proper priorities. Hand in support, whether it's blocker side or glove side, how you position it makes a difference. Right back to part 3 of the series. We're not there yet, but wait till we get to part 3. It's desperation, and they actually like flat on your belly, down and out, guy winding up into an open net, and they practice this here in Vancouver, and there are specific ways to give yourself better leverage and better access with your gloves to those pucks that we'll get to in part 3. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled at ingoalmag.com for part 2 this week and part 3 next week.
That's funny. John Shannon, the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, and now an announcer for a bunch of different outlets. He's got a great phrase when we talk about we're going to do something. He says, "Okay, I'll go practice my ad libs. I'll prepare my ad libs." which is obviously making fun of what we do. But that sounds like what they're doing in Vancouver, practicing their ad libs.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are situations where you got to go outside the technical box, but there are also situations in desperation scrambles where certain little parts of technique, like, can help you, give you a better chance. Like, because the game's not perfect. We're going to end up in strange positions, in down and out at times. That's just the way it is. Why would we not practice those moments a little bit? And in doing so, in practicing them, find ways to get better at them. There are times when desperation is just desperation, but there are times when we're a desperate moment where, and I'll give some hints as to how this works. The way we angle our leg or bend our, a part of our leg, or the way where we plant one of our elbows totally changes our ability to make a desperate save. And if we haven't gone through the motions and practiced and realized, hey, this is the best way to free up this hand, or to allow me to reach further with the hand that is my only chance of making this desperate save, how are you going to find that in the moment? So some firm guidelines and tips that will help you make more of those.
So when will that be up?
That one's, I'm teasing that one. That's a couple weeks out because we got part 2 first. Like all right. Good progressions, you got to build the skill in order. So part 1 is up now, part 2 next week, and part 3, where we'll get laid out on our bellies, is a couple weeks away. And
the idea of learning how to read the game, how do you get better at that? Well, you watch the pro reads. That is the best way to improve your skill, unless you have access to a professional goalie coach and you're working with them nonstop. But leaning, like Joseph Woll talks about, borrowing things from other people. This is the coolest thing that you can do to learn how to read the game. Yeah, and I mean, and even the guys that do have access to the goalie coaches that are watching their own video and breaking through, like, how did we do this and what are we looking for, and doing that level of breakdown. Even as you said, even those guys are telling us that they can learn by hearing how other guys do it. So it's one of our most popular features. It's one, if you're a goalie coach, goalie parent, even you can learn from. Every week, a new pro read featuring a goaltender from the NHL or American Hockey League, walking through NHL footage of them, sharing how they approach a sequence, why they use a certain save selection in that situation, and what some of the triggers and keys are they're looking for that allow them to make the right decision. And it's always up every week at InGoalMag.com. Make sure you check it out. Fascinating. InGoal Radio, the podcast presented by Source for Sports Surrey, The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, and of course, the feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena VR. For David Hutchison, Kevin Woodley, thanks for listening on behalf of Cam and Joseph Woll. Good goaltending as you continue this journey in our great, fascinating sport.